tough market right now, and it's no different for therapy right now with AI changing how people use platforms like Google, all these mental health tech platforms like BetterHelp and Talkspace, and there's so many pressures on our clients right now that you have to be bold to be able to actually survive. And actually, well, I'm not even going to say survive. I'm going to say thrive. I think all companies, especially in the industries I'm familiar with, which is the therapy world, and then also obviously marketing agencies, it just favors the bold right now because you will fall behind.
They said getting started was the hardest part, but no one told you how hard it is to scale a custom service business. It's time for your team to step up, but your clients want you. Discover how to scale to 7 figures and beyond by freeing up time and getting your team to run whole parts of the company so you can focus on scaling profits. This is the Hands Off CEO with Mandy Ellefson.
Hello, this is Mandy Ellefson, host of the Hands Off CEO podcast. Today on the show, I have Kristie Plantinga from Place Digital. And what they do is they're a boutique digital marketing agency, and they work in the mental health space, and they really are the best in the space. So I'm going to be interviewing Kristie, and she's going to be sharing how her journey for really becoming the very top in her industry and how she's done that, and how they deliver absolutely exceptional results for clients. And even you guys even guarantee those results too, don't you, Kristie?
We do.
Yeah. So welcome to the show. It's so nice to have you here, Kristie.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. I love talking shop. So
Right. Well, and Kristie has also gone through our Invisible Advantage Growth Intensive, and she's a member of our Scale to Freedom tribe now. So she has been going through this process and continuing to up-level her company. So I know, Kristie, you have seen some really incredible changes happen into your company. So I'd love to just kind of unpack, what did you see when you were hitting up against a point in your company and your agency where you were not able to grow at the level you wanted to? Do you want to kind of share where you were at then?
Yeah, definitely. It was this January, actually. I just kind of decided, okay, I'm just going to absorb everything I can about agency growth. And historically, I've been very disappointed in the content out there that I've encountered. Lots of marketing bros sharing how they all did it the same way with just, operationalize everything and cheap labor. And that was really the bulk of the suggestions that I was hearing online, and it just didn't cut it for me. So I love the Agency Profitability podcast by Parakeeto. I'm going to shout out them because that's one of my favorite podcasts. You've been a guest on the podcast multiple times. And I heard I think the first interview you did with them, and you just had such a different approach. And I was just kind of pleasantly surprised, and I thought, let me learn more about this. So went to your website, got your book, and I've said this many times too, but I devoured it. I think I was like home alone that weekend, so it was just me and my laptop just reading your book, and just reading all of it. And I knew that I was struggling to grow in the way that I wanted to, but you laid it out in such a way that I could really kind of continue along this same path, and I probably wouldn't ever get to where I wanted to be if I continued to do the things that I was doing at the time, or I can make the very brave choice of doing things quite differently starting very, very soon. And I remember I reached out to you, and I joined the program that you mentioned, and I absolutely loved it, and it opened up my eyes to a whole new way of doing things. And I was, of course, as anyone is when they take a risk like that, scared. The biggest question, I think, for me and probably a lot of people who want to work with you is this going to work for me, though? Is this going to work for my business? And I thought, initially I was like, maybe not, because the clients that I work with, who are typically therapists, famously underpaid people in very, very underpaid professionals. And so I thought, how are they going to be able to transition with me, into this space where I do have higher fees, but also the service I provide is so much better now. And I just learned that there's always going to be that top 10% of companies that really want to grow, and they need service providers that match that ambition and they match that quality. And that's the space we occupy now. And it was honestly, there's like a gaping hole for it in my industry. So I was like, well, might as well be me. Why not us? Because we've always done amazing work, but now just stepping into that's really been the big difference and shaping everything that we do around that.
Right. So then, I love what you just shared there, because you looked at this and said, okay, I don't know if this is going to work because this market is underpaid. They're underpaid themselves. How can they pay us
Mm-hmm.
enough to actually be sustainable? And here's the thing that's really interesting is that, when you joined, I didn't know if this was going to be a market that you would be able to be
Mm-hmm.
successful in either. Like, and
Yeah.
that's not the one, that's not the only option. There's lots of different options for how. I know you had considered other markets that were adjacent, and that
Mm-hmm.
there's a number of different options that you can do. It's just about finding the one that feels aligned.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I never wanted to move away from the mental health space. I'm very passionate about it. I love working with therapists. I love our clients. Um, and we plan on adding additional niches in the future, but we never wanted to move away from the mental health space. But I think I was very quick. I had been very quick to write things off, and I think primarily it's because I was just doubtful that it was possible. But we have many people who want to work with us now. We're absolutely, selling services at our new rates. And part of it is just because we're so confident in what we can offer. Because, if you can prove that the return is there, why wouldn't someone spend more money? They can spend $10,000 with our competitor and not see anything, or they can spend, our rate, but then we can actually get them a return that I think matches, it just has to be a right sized return on whatever they spend. And in our cases, it can be even more than a right size return. And a lot of that is because, yeah, we just had to take the step and say, we know we can do this. We know we can deliver. Therefore, it doesn't make sense to charge these old prices, because I think, unfortunately, and again, I've been there, there's absolutely no judgment to anyone who is still doing this, but we kind of want to fit into what our clients think that things should be priced, but typically they just don't know, right? Like they're looking for a service because they need help with something. And so going based off of what they think something should cost doesn't actually make sense. But I think for so many of us, that's what we just end up doing, for years potentially, in our own agencies. So,
Right. And so that, and you're working with the same market, a little bit of an adjustment.
mhm.
And so how much, so, we're obviously, you've got your business that you have your own private information, but do you want to share like the increase of price that you've seen?
Yeah, at this point, we have increased our prices by 233% ish. Which again, I just never would have imagined that for myself years ago, or even last December. I never would have thought that we would be at this point, but it's just so aligned with our company's values. And I will say the clients that we're working with now, they're just so great too. Like every client we're working with, they're just so motivated and they trust us and they're excited. It's just everything has gotten better. Like truly, the only thing that's maybe worse is that the pressure is more there for us to really deliver. But again, we're ready for it.
Right.
Bring it on. Like we're ready for that pressure because we're confident. So yeah, just everything has just flowed better.
So I want to actually talk about the outcome. So, you're charging over 233%, and they're buying it. They're not having a problem with this,
Hmm.
because of the way that you've structured your offer, the way that you've structured, like, this is a really good investment for them. You've made a
Hmm.
really good case why they should make this investment, and why this is going to get them a 5 to 10x plus ROI.
Hmm.
So, looking at this, what is your minimum standard now? We talk about the outcome statement around Like, what is the outcome that you generate for these companies over, the period of time? I think it's 12 months, right? Your outcome.
Yeah. Yeah. So we work with our clients for 12 months. In our case, we do a search engine optimization primarily, and we incorporate other forms of marketing in our service as well. But that's very appropriate for the work that we do, is that 12-month contract. And what was your
The outcome
question?
statement, that formula that we have,
Oh,
we help like companies be able to generate this amount in this time.
yeah. So we help group practices generate $500,000 in revenue within 12 months is our goal. And we have very honest conversations when we are vetting a potential client if that number is realistic for them. But then also we can advise them on, here's what's you need to get in place to get there. So we used to ask our clients, what are your goals? But now we can say, these are our goals for you. How does that sound? And no one's going to say no. Like a lot of times, I mean, there occasionally are people who come in with pretty unrealistic goals based on their current setup. But us being able to set the standard of, here's our goal for you, and our methodology has been proven to deliver that. It's very, very powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. Because and that is the key piece of this, is that you're bringing a
Mm-hmm.
vision to them. They didn't even think it was possible to add another half a million dollars of growth to their company in a 12
Mm-hmm.
month period of time.
Yeah.
But and I know that you're capable of more than that too. And
Mm-hmm.
you're being rather conservative with that too, because you're looking at it over a 12-month period of time. Now, what if they work with you for 24 months or
Yeah.
36 months?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how does that change the equation there? And for you really being that growth partner for them.
Yeah. And that's really the client that we try to work with. And we're upfront about that now. It's not 1 year and see you later, your business is good to go. It's okay. So we, accomplished our first goal. What's your next goal? New market, new location, new services. And so we become the partner that helps them just continue to expand. So especially with a marketing strategy like SEO, it very much has this compounding effect, right? So maybe in the first year we got here, but then that's already happening. And then we can just kind of keep stacking. So it's very, very scalable in that way. And it suits therapy practices very, very well in that way. So yeah, that's why we try to work with people as long as possible. I always say, as long as this is making sense for you, if this relationship is not making sense, or you're not getting the kind of return that you want to anymore, we can have that discussion. But there's always more that we can do,
Right.
for a therapy practice if they have those goals.
So this therapy practice, around what size are they often when they start working with you?
Yeah. Typically, I would say many of them are about maybe 5 to 10 clinicians, but we've started with, companies that have as many as 30. We've also seen people add, dozens of clinicians, after we work with
Right.
them, just because they have so many leads coming in from the work that we're doing.
Mm.
So I think, I'm open to working with different sizes, but it's obviously more challenging when you are a bit smaller, just because you typically have less resources, less of a reputation for us to leverage for
Mhm.
marketing efforts. But it's very rewarding, to help people
Right.
go from something smaller and then really get them to this place that maybe they didn't think was possible, especially if they are a private pay practice that doesn't accept insurance. That's a really tough market to crack, and it's also what everybody wants.
Mm.
So helping people be able to do that, because I have noticed that there are, and I'm sure it's the same thing with clients that you work with, that everyone wants this dream, right? Everyone kind of wants the same thing, but is someone willing to do what it takes to get there? That's the question, and those are the founders that we partner with best.
Love it. So, but I'm just kind of trying to get an idea of like with 5 to 10 clinicians, what would their annual turnover, their revenue be at
Oh
that point?
yeah, definitely. So we estimate it, if we get their average billable rate is where we start with. And then we say, okay, how many sessions are you seeing a client on average? We'll get like an average client lifetime value essentially. And then we essentially calculate, okay, we want to fill 6 of your clinicians within a year. And for most private pay practices, one clinician brings in maybe $70,000 to $100,000, depending
Mhm.
on, fees and stuff like that. So if we fill, 6 of those clinicians, that gets you to,
Right.
about the $500,000 mark. So that's how we calculate that number.
Okay. Well, the reason why I'm looking at this too is that how earth shattering this is for these clients that you're working with, actually, because you're
Mm-hmm.
able to take them from, they could be at, 500 to a million in revenue, and you can be able
Mm-hmm.
to add, 50 to 100% growth in a year. And you,
Mm-hmm.
you could do that year over year, it seems like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a very, very scalable business model, actually, and that doesn't mean it's easy to crack, like running
Right.
running a group therapy practice. But as soon as you have this foundation, then you can just say, okay, I want to start offering couples counseling now. You can hire a couples therapist, and then great, let's get you inquiries for couples counseling. Great, that clinician is full. Let's maybe get another one in couples. Let's get another one. Maybe we should open a location on the other side of town, like that kind of thing.
Right.
So it's very, very scalable in that sense where, it's you can really, really plan things out, actually, and there's really no cap to the growth. Like, there are definitely therapy practices bringing in multi-million dollars, just based on because they were just able to grow over time.
Right. Well, and this works for a number of reasons. I mean, this is scalable for you because you chose a market. You chose your focus.
Mm-hmm.
And also, something that is of critical importance here that is oftentimes overlooked. I don't quite understand why, but it's actually you have the skills to be able to drive real results. And
Yep.
so I'm curious, like you're describing how you can knock it out of the park for all of your clients because you know what your success conditions are, you know what the
Mm-hmm.
problems that they have, you know what their market, you know them so well, and you're able to say, well, you don't have these things in place, so we're not going to be able to add $500,000 in growth. Maybe we can add 300,000, and
Mm-hmm.
next year we could do 500,000. But at that point, they could
Yep.
make a decision. But um, now, has it always been that way though, where you had that level of confidence with all of your clients? You had the
No.
skill, but what's changed?
Yeah, definitely. I think the skill was always there, but like I said, I think trying to fit into our clients' budgets really held us back. We needed to be the actual leader in the conversation and say, hey, that's not going to cut it. And now we have that conversation a couple times a week with people where it's like, you could do that. You could spend $10,000 with company X down the street, but it's probably not going to get you anything. Literally.
Right.
And I don't say literally lightly. I'm not one of those millennials. When I say literally, I mean literally. Okay. That probably won't get you anything. Um, and it's just because it's simply not enough. And I mean, we talk a lot about just in the program, it's just a very competitive, tough market right now. And it's no different for therapy right now with, um, AI changing how people use platforms like Google, all these mental health tech platforms like BetterHelp and Talkspace. And, there's so many pressures on our clients right now that you have to be bold to be able to actually survive. And actually, well, I'm not even going to say survive, I'm going to say thrive, because I can point out tons of group practices that are surviving by the skin of their teeth. And it sounds like a horrible way to live life, and it's very stressful. But absolutely, I think all companies, especially in the industries I'm familiar with, which is the therapy world, and then also obviously marketing agencies, it just favors the bold right now, because you will fall behind. And at a certain point, you can. And I know that the churn and burn model is common, unfortunately, in marketing agencies. And people definitely, we have clients who have experience with that kind of agency in the past, and it's tough to win their trust. Um, but I didn't want to be a churn and burn. I wanted to be my client's favorite investment. I always say that. I'm like, maybe it's, like a silly thing, but I just want to be the best money you've ever spent. Like, that's how I want you to look at our work together. And coming to a sales conversation and forming a relationship with someone with that kind of energy, that's very, very different than how most marketing agencies communicate with their clients.
Well, there's so many things here that I just love that you said. One of the things about, the boldness needed. So you're able to
Mm-hmm.
take a stand for your clients in this boldness, which is what allows them to really be able to thrive in this market, because
Mm-hmm.
the there are so many services right now that are stalling. They are not making
Yep.
investments. And the reason why they're not making investments is because they're not good investments. They're not
Yeah.
like they're saying no to the $10,000 people that you're talking about down the road, because they don't have a lot of certainty, or maybe they'll throw a little bit of money at it and see if it works out, but they'll pull it before
Yep.
they even get to 10,000 probably, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so we have this whole market of all these services that are continuing to peddle the same junk that they sold,
Mm-hmm.
in the years past, that they could get away with because money
Yep.
was cheaper, because they didn't have such huge threats of AI. Like you're saying, like AI is threatening
Mm-hmm.
their business model, and
Yep.
AI is threatening the marketing agency business model too.
Mm-hmm.
But most people, the way that they're solving this problem right now is, like you said at the beginning. I love that you just pointed that, like, we're gonna operationalize this better, and we're gonna have cheap labor. And the cheap labor from overseas has now, not that I have any problem with overseas labor, by the way,
Yeah,
but the
I
cheap
use it all the
labor,
time.
yeah,
Yep.
there's nothing wrong with cheap labor. It's just that cheap labor without a really solid strategy that's actually going to lead to real results for clients is just a race to the bottom.
Yep.
So, you mentioned about the operation, like what is typically said out there is like to operationalize and cheap labor,
Mm-hmm.
the very typical approach. Like AI is just another answer for that. It's just cheaper labor. So what
Mm-hmm.
it is you're like optimizing for something where there's less and less demand for it in the market.
Yeah, basically. That's a great way
Yeah.
of putting it.
Um, but it's the thing is it's no different than what's been going on for years with
Mm-hmm.
automation, with like we've been seeing this come down the pipe for well over a decade. You
Yep.
know, I saw this change when I had an agency, and like the commoditization has already begun. It's just
Mm,
what most people are trying to find the solution on this is that they're looking at how do we be able to become more efficient, and that's the wrong answer.
yep.
The right answer is what you're doing, Kristie. It's like adding more value and saying, how do we be able to scale this? Not start with the value, start with the impact,
Yep.
and
Yeah.
then you figure out
And
how to scale it.
yeah, and you taught me that. So, and I will say too, I just want to say for my own, values and stuff, I love overseas working with, employees overseas. Cheap is never my prerogative. And if I feel like something is too cheap, I usually don't feel, comfortable pursuing it. But I know a lot of people that is just their whole thing. And yeah, they're kind of optimizing for nothing at that point. It's like, what are we doing here? So I just want to say that. But I think, making the shift, and this is stuff I've heard before, right? Don't sell deliverables, sell outcomes. I've heard that a lot before, but I think what was different about when I was consuming some of your materials and hearing you talk on podcasts, it wasn't really about outcomes, but also it's like a transformation, like you said, because it's the same sort of thing. It's like you spend this much money and you get this, or you can spend this much money and you get all this sort of thing. And
Right.
it's really kind of, we talk about this internally on my team, where it's like, here's a bag of nothing and here's a bag of money. Which do you want? And people are going to say the bag of money. And it's like, okay, that's how much, that's what you need to do to get that bag of money. So I think it's really just it was like this logical fallacy I had that I could continue. And it's the same thing I told my clients, like, oh, I can do the same thing as everybody else and get this different result.
Yeah.
And it's just not true. But I think I was still believing that at one point. But it just, yeah, reading your book and obviously continuing to work with you, it's just a fallacy. Like it just doesn't equate. It can't happen.
Yeah. Well, I remember when we had the first conversation, and I remember you were like, I you were so committed to getting results. The thing that you wanted, it wasn't like, I want to make more money. Like you knew you were
Yeah.
going to make more money, but you were like, I really just want to serve our clients in bigger ways. I wanted to be able
Yep.
to be the very best and be able to be that for all of our clients.
Hmm.
And it takes that, doesn't it? It takes like that
Yep.
commitment.
Yeah, that commitment. And again, it's if you're asking your clients to do bold things, but you're not being bold yourself, there's no way it's going to happen. They can pick up on that, right?
Right.
So it was obviously very scary to make these changes, and there are definitely times that I doubted it, and it's tough to go back once you say, "Hey, this is what we cost." Backpedaling is difficult, and it feels really bad. It doesn't feel good to backpedal, but I trusted the process, and yeah, just over time again, even if you are in a market that traditionally does have less funds, like, yeah, my husband, he works in renewable energy, and he's like, "Oh, my company just has a barista in the office today." Just like, I don't get how companies work. We just have all of this like disposable income. But that's awesome for you guys. But the people I work with, they are not hiring baristas for, their offices and stuff like that. But their businesses can absolutely work. And what's even tougher is if you're working in a market where they're often told you're not going to make money in this career. This is a heart-led career. You're going to sacrifice your well-being. You're doing this for other people. You're going to be a martyr. Essentially, that's your job. Having those conversations about like, you can absolutely serve, your clients so well and have this heart-led career and really change people's lives, but it's okay to make money too. And we can do that. Here's how I recommend doing it. Um, that's a rare voice in, I think, that kind of industry, but also if you have the confidence to back it up, because there are plenty
Mhm.
of, people are like, well, I did it this way and worked for me, so it should probably work for you. But the difference with working with an agency is like, I've seen it done so many ways. This is the one that consistently works. And that's what we form our service, our offer around.
Mm, yeah. Um, one of the things that really stood out to me for you while you were going through this process, and I know you're still in this process, you've now
Deep in
hired
it.
yeah, well, you've hired this has allowed you to hire an operations manager, and
Hmm.
what that's doing for you as far as your time and the freedom you're having. I mean, if you
Hmm.
want to share any more on that, feel free to.
Oh yeah, I could. Yeah, my operations manager just started, and she's said so many things, and I'm like, I never thought I would hear that from anyone. And it's so nice.
And but the amount of time freedom this gives for you and your family, and
Hmm.
your ability to take off the time when you need it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm 8 months pregnant right now, and I'm, first time mom. This will be my first time really stepping away for a longer period of time. Um, but I think just having more funds in your business, because yeah, it's the same thing. Everyone wants to make more money, right? I mean, that's not initially why I reached out to you. Of course it was part of it, but it was more, I want to provide for my employees. I want to offer these amazing results for the people I work with. I want to be the best. Like, that's really why I reached out. But I think just in more of a capitalist society, we're taught that there are winners and losers. But with this model specifically, it's just winners all around, because if we have more funds, we can treat our employees better. We can hire operations managers so we can take time off and have balanced lives. My employees can get paid more and have, fun benefits. Our clients obviously are doing, much better because they're working with us. So I'm always looking for that kind of opportunity in business where it just kind of turns the winners and losers thing on its head. And I guess the only losers would be, oh, you didn't, work with us. I guess good luck. Which I guess would be the only loser in that situation. Um, but that's always something I'm looking for, just because equity is very important to me in the work that I do.
Yeah. So back in January, did you think it was going to be possible for you to take this long extended maternity leave and actually be making money through it?
I definitely thought things would come to a halt, and then I'd probably be getting text messages pretty often saying, like, this needs to happen and this needs to happen. So I think I knew I could do it, but I would not. I think I thought I could take time off, but I didn't think that I would have peace while doing it.
Mm,
But now I think I will have that peace because I see things being resolved in front of me in real time. And I'm like, oh, that's a really good way to go about it. That's maybe even better than what I would have thought, which is what I
mm,
was absolutely looking for with
yeah.
an operations manager, is someone who's better than me at some of this stuff. Because I always say, I'm like, there's enough Kristie in my business. We do not need any more of her. No more energy from her. We need a different kind of thing. And that's what the operations manager has
Mm.
has become.
Love it. Well, you have really applied yourself. You have leaned in, and you have gone bold, and you've been courageous. And I really want to acknowledge you because you're the one who did this. You made this happen. You had the skills already to do it, but it's just about like having the courage to raise the bar on what
Mhm.
you expect out of your clients, and you know, saying no longer we're going to accept these lower budgets that we can't deliver real impact with. And
Mhm.
I just really want to acknowledge you for that. So just really proud of you. Good work.
Mm. Thank you. I mean, couldn't do it without you. Um, but yes, thank you.
Well, what advice would you give for another
Mm.
agency or a service provider who, they have great skills, but
Mhm.
they're just looking at what are my options here? I don't want to dilute what we're doing by scaling
Yep.
it. I need to make more sales here, and I don't know what to do next. What advice would you give to them?
Yeah. I think another thing that stood out to me about what you were saying, um, compared to a lot of the other advice that's out there from the YouTube marketing bros, they never say anything about you have to be good at what you do. That is a success condition for your company. It's like if you're not actually good at what you do, then we can't work together. You can't get these mediocre results. It's just going to land you in a world of trouble. If you have these higher fees, but then you can't get the results. It sounds like a nightmare, honestly, just having to live in that business every day. So I think for people who know that they do really good work, I think what I learned in the initial program that I took with you is so much of it is about positioning. Um, we just were doing a terrible job at positioning. Like we were, stuck in the deliverables trap. And then, like you said, as soon as someone sees a cost for deliverable, what do? They go shopping around and price comparisons and all that kind of stuff. It's a trap, and it really has nothing to do with anything. Like a deliverable is meaningless, really, on its own. So it's we don't even tell our clients about all of the deliverables we have anymore. We don't even mention them because we're like, it doesn't matter. You don't even need to know about this. It's like it obviously contributes to the result, but I'm not going to spend all this time saying, "Ooh, we did this thing for you." It's like, yeah, we're going to do it because it's part of our job. But I would say, yeah, I mean, obviously, if again someone is listening and they're like, God, we are really good at what we do, and I feel stuck in the scaling process, I would just say, like, talk to you and your team would be my main advice, because that's just like a perfect fit. But again, I so believe in this model, but you do have to be the kind of business that gets results, but also is willing to be really bold and be okay taking risk, and be that model for your clients. It's I wouldn't say it's for everyone, and you say that too, and your team says that too. Um, but yeah, I just know for a fact that I wouldn't be here right now with the things that I have going on if I didn't work with your team. And it's one of those things I was like, maybe I can spend 3 years to figure this out really slowly and messily and eventually come to those conclusions. But it is just so much better to work with people who have seen it all and can understand your situation and just help you get there faster, again with a proven model, because you've just done this so many times. That's just, it just make, and it's the same thing that I say to my clients: here's a bag of nothing, here's a bag of money, and I chose the bag of money. So
That's funny. Well, and you mentioned something about risk. I want to just touch on that with risk, because what's interesting is that it used to be we only worked with the most innovative type of companies.
mm,
And because we were, earlier adopters that were really interested, and they want that, like yourself, you're innovative, you're willing to be bold and all that. But what we have seen is that there are a lot more people now that are starting to see that the risk of them, being invisible is much, much higher than the risk of them being bold and
mm-hmm.
maybe having a little bit of rejection from their competitors. And
Yeah,
like,
that's the fallacy right there. Yeah.
but who cares what your competitors think? Your competitors
Yeah.
are not going to like you. I know it. Some of our competitors do not like me, and that's totally okay with
Like,
me.
I could
I'm
live
all
with
right
that.
with that. Like I've been on their shows before, and they cut off my call to action at the end for our website. They cut off my name and everything, and then people still found us. It was so
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah.
And so I'm just like, well, that's interesting. You must find me threatening. That's interesting. But
Mhm.
I can't believe I
It's a
said that
compliment. It's the
publicly.
highest of compliments. It's
Oh,
up
I
there
know.
with copying you, you know?
No, and like I've had a couple people, pretty big name people, do that actually, and I thought
Mhm.
that that's really interesting, and it's just interesting, right? But it also just goes to show, like, you're not going to please everybody. You might as well please the people who you're actually going to be able to really make an
Yep.
impact with, and know, like, are you here to be liked by everyone? Are you here to really make a big impact, and
Mhm.
be liked by the people who are really who you could really make a big difference with, right? And be liked by your
Mhm.
family, who gets to see you in the evening, and who gets to,
Mhm.
like your sweet baby, who's going to have their mom just be with them the whole time during the maternity
Mhm.
leave, right? And
Mhm.
like, I guess it's just really coming down to what the master is, who's the master that you're serving, and what
Yeah.
what really is risky, you know?
Yeah. I love thinking about how, cuz yeah, I think it's for most things, the passive route is the safe route in a lot of cases, right? It's like the path that's more traveled, that's, the trail that's more established, or, not making an investment. Like, typically that's just how humans work, is we're not big risk takers, just neurologically speaking. It's really not how we work. But in, I think, this market, and with the way things are just going at a million miles an hour, honestly, mostly due to AI, I don't think there's many industries that I know that aren't affected by it in some point. So actually, you kind of playing it safe and not doing anything is the much riskier thing, because we are in an age of innovation. We are in an age of, the standards are just higher, because AI is just doing so much of the stuff that no one needs to pay you to do anymore. Like, it can do so much. So if you're doing things that are so easily replaced by something like AI, you gotta do something different. So actually making such a big change is the less risky thing. I think that's a little bit difficult to wrap your mind around at first, but that's kind of where I landed earlier this year. I was like, it's so much more risky to assume that what I'm doing now is still going to work in a year, versus trying something different that makes total sense to me.
Love it. Well, risky.
Risky. Risky Kristie.
No,
It's my new
I'm
name,
laughing.
my new nickname.
We'll decide whether we keep that in or not.
Yeah.
But Kristie, it's been such a pleasure having you. Where can
Mhm.
people find you?
Yeah, so they can go to our website, placedigital.com. That's our agency. We also have a therapy directory that we're building up, besttherapists.com. I'm also doing work there. We have a mental health podcast we're actually releasing this week. So, depending on when this podcast episode comes out, I'm sure it'll be live. So, you can hear more of my mental health ramblings there. LinkedIn, and I don't like any other social media. So, that's it.
Well, thank you so much for coming on here,
Yeah,
Kristie, and
thank you.
sharing your experience, really building your company to become the very top 1% in your industry.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Hands Off CEO with Mandy Ellefson. If you want to work less and make more, make sure you subscribe and get a new episode every week, and help spread the word by leaving a review.